everyone. Welcome back to another episode of 20somethings TV. My name is Jamie, and we're joined here today with Lee, Matthew, Anthony, Ellie, and Amelia. We have some fun, not necessarily fun, but we have some good topics to discuss today, and we're starting with mental health for athletes. So, Olympic gold medalist Simone Biles recently left the 2021 Tokyo Olympics due to mental health concerns. Thoughts?
I know. Oh, wait, you can go ahead, Matt.
Basically, I mean, the whole situation was like in general poorly explained through like everything. Everybody had their own opinion, and no one got to know the actual truth. And I was just really intrigued by how people famous athletes also would kind of neglect mental health awareness. Like Novak Djokovic, who's a professional tennis player, actually one of the best in the world of all time, said that pressure is a privilege about talking about Simone Biles backing out of the Olympics. And I disagree with that because, I mean, it's how she's performing, and she can't perform if something's wrong with her.
I think, though, also, just talking about mental health, even with professional athletes in the spotlight, you don't always know what's going on behind closed doors. We know, or a lot of people are aware of the case of Larry Nassar and the U.S. gymnastics team. They obviously had been through so much, and up until recently, we didn't know the full extent, and that probably just added to all the pressure of being a professional athlete.
Well, mental health isn't just about how you're feeling, right? It affects everything, your physical health, and it can make you dangerous in physical situations. And I think, not just athletes, but anybody in sort of a public position faces these sort of issues of, immense pressure. And honestly, you don't even have to be a famous person to experience mental health issues. I think we have a mental health crisis overall in America today, in the world. And I think, luckily there's more resources kind of coming to light to sort of help people, but there's still a lot of work that needs to be done. And I think mental health overall, especially after the pandemic, needs to be prioritized.
Yeah.
I agree. Go ahead.
You go ahead, Anthony. No, you're good.
I kind of was thinking about how because Simone Biles had a spotlight on her, it basically could have enhanced issues that she could have had. And when you're in a public position like that, everything just kind of goes under a magnifying glass. So there could be a lot more to it than we even know.
But
I think it's really admirable that she was able to be so vocal about her reasons for kind of taking a step back. Because you were saying, Amelia, anybody can really experience it. So if I were younger than I am, kind of struggling with something like this, and I heard someone like Simone Biles be like, I want to focus and I choose myself and my mental health right now, because it's hindering me from performing. I feel that would almost validate how I'm feeling as well if I was someone still learning about mental health issues and things like that. But I think that she used her platform in such an incredible way, especially because I feel sometimes when I was growing up, people would tell me oh, if you just eat right, if you just exercise, Simone Biles is one of the most fit people in the world, and she can still be suffering a lot of mental distress, especially in her position. So I just thought it was such a cool way to use her platform.
Going off that, I think it's funny how you see these people on Reddit talking about, oh, she can't handle the big time. The people on Reddit that are mostly the people that are typing behind Reddit are out of shape people who have never done anything like what she's doing in her life. And for them to comment on how she is not living up to her expectations just mind boggles me.
Yeah. And, I think Anthony, you said something about how we don't even know how much she was struggling. And I think, there's this stigma that you have to be struggling a certain amount for it to be serious. Honestly, any amount of mental health issue is an issue and it should be taken seriously. We shouldn't wait till people are sort of at the breaking point to be addressing it. I think anyone can sort of benefit. There's people that don't even realize that they, could improve their mental health.
I think it's also probably a good step in recognizing that mental health is just as important as physical health. And that's definitely not seen as much in athletes who like their whole career is about their physical health. So I just think it could help that stigma.
There's an even bigger stigma too about men and mental health. So I don't know if you want to get into like the genders of it, but like there's a big stigma about like men having feelings and men dealing with mental health. And I don't know, I've been reading a lot of articles about the struggles of men in the spotlight who feel like they can't even be as open. So there's that to consider too. I'm a big fan of the podcast, the Two Lads podcast, which I recommend to anyone who's looking for a new podcast to listen to. They talk a lot about mental health and their experiences, being two men who are both in the entertainment industry. But I just think, you know, there's like so many avenues about mental health that we haven't yet explored that could use more attention.
Amelia, I'm really happy you brought that up because when I was researching about mental health, there's a baseball player named Alec Boehm. It's not just Alec Boehm, but he's the most recent one to have it. There's a thing in baseball called yips where they just like forget how to do what they've done their whole life. Like Alec Boehm forgot how to field a ground ball and basically got sent down all the way down to the minor leagues, got kicked out of the major leagues. And no one really looks at the males for talking about mental health awareness.
I agree. You should listen to that podcast. You might like it.
I agree. I feel like some men don't get taken as seriously when it comes to mental health because a lot of men are taught to suppress their emotions and they don't really learn a healthy way to express themselves. So it's really like a catch-22 when it comes to them even talking about mental health because they might be ostracized for it by their peers. Okay, moving on to our next topic. It's about James Bond. As Daniel Craig wraps up his last James Bond film, Waiting to Die, this leaves a lot of people wondering who's going to be the next James Bond. It's pretty obvious, especially looking at this picture, all of the James Bonds have been white men. Is this next James Bond movie an opportunity to add some diversity into the Bond universe? What do you guys think?
Cue the Schmidt clip. A white man? No. But like it's just like you look at that and it's like, wow, they all look the same. A lot of white men. But yeah, I think it'd be a good time to introduce diversity, but I think, you know, they need to do it for reasons that's not just them feeling like, oh, we're going to get judged if we don't. Like, people should want to include diversity. Yeah. You know, like people of color, even, you know, I don't know if it's been talked about, you know, switching the gender of James Bond, but, you know, there's so many avenues.
Something that I thought was like really interesting is what Daniel Craig said. He got like some backlash for it, but I think it was just taken out of context. But everybody interprets it differently. But he said to Radio Times, "Why should a woman play James Bond when there should be a part just as good as James Bond, but for a woman?" Like basically saying that there should be roles created that like make people feel as excited as James Bond does. And then the producer of the franchise, Barbara Broccoli, I think it's pronounced, she says that James Bond can be like any race and any ethnicity, but should remain a male. And then another point to that, and kind of like the same leaf, Lashana Lynch, who played Maria Rambeau in Captain Marvel, she's going to be playing an M16 agent in the like newest James Bond. She might be projected to be the new James Bond, and she said that James Bond could be white, black, Asian, mixed race. They could be young or old. At the end of the day, even if a 2-year-old was playing Bond, everyone would flock to cinema to see what this 2-year-old is going to do now. So I want to know what y'all's takes are on that. Like, do you think that everybody would still be as excited for a James Bond movie regardless of who plays like that role?
Especially in the like entertainment industry, like, people and fans are afraid of change. They don't really like to see change. Like James Bond has always been a white male actor. So I feel that people are thinking that if you change the actor right now in the last movie especially, that it's not going to do well and that people are not going to like it and they're not going to enjoy it. But in reality, it's probably going to be just as good as every other movie.
I think that there's like a difference, like someone said before, between like actually wanting diversity and inclusion and then like having it just to say you have diversity. An example of this is the Ghostbusters movie that came out in like 2016, and it was advertised as like a diverse movie, and it was I think it was critically panned, and I think it was the reason why it was just because it was the quality of the film wasn't good, and alone having well that's subjective, but alone having that as your whole talking point um, sometimes is not enough.
Well, if you look at a lot of the articles that critique that film, they were actually upset because it was women. So like, you know, let's not even go there. But you look at movies even like Ocean's 8, right? That was a movie where they had an all-female cast. That movie did not do as good as the other Oceans. Should it have? Yes. But it's literally not even about the quality of the movie. It's like sexism. And I think, Lee, you made a really good point, which was really interesting to me, was like, should a woman be James Bond, or like should they have their own role? And I do think that, we don't really create women roles from scratch. We are just like, oh, eventually like women get the same rights as men. Like you see this in society and the trends of everything basically. So like, yeah, let's start from scratch. So I kind of like that idea more, but I don't think that should be an excuse to completely rule it out. I don't know. I have a lot of mixed feelings.
James Bond, if you guys have watched the movies, there's a character that he really relates to. Her name's Moneypenny. And I feel that if you just give her a bigger role and like have her in the field working with him and make it an equal part with James, so it's like a two-person movie, almost two main star movie, I feel like that would honestly work really well.
Yeah, just going off that, like I feel like most roles for women in big action franchise movies like this, and also just people of color, like they're oftentimes added in like for the inclusivity, but they're almost always side characters. So like you said, if they were to like make the roles bigger, maybe it would feel a little better or more inclusive. But the inclusivity is almost always just like side characters, never like the protagonist.
I think people just need to stop making excuses about why not to, widen roles past white men.
I think this would be the perfect opportunity to add some kind of diversity, whether it was through gender or race. And I feel like people are going to support the movie regardless, just because of the Bond name that's attached to it. So what better time than now to do something different?
I think it's hard though, because then you do look at movies like Ghostbusters and Ocean's 8, right? And like those should have done as well because they had the big names behind them and they didn't. So makes me mad.
And even if the gender of James Bond doesn't change, I know that there are some talks of like Idris Elba to play James Bond, which I think would be really awesome to see. He's got that kind of whole like suave mystery going on, or Henry Cavill, who played Superman, Richard Madden, who was in Game of Thrones. Lots of big names out there, but I feel as though I'm just kind of excited to see what the next saga of the Bond franchise has in store, because I personally love Lashana Lynch because I am a Marvel fiend and I thought she was incredible as Maria Rambeau. But I think again, like people have, especially like directors, writers, producers, etc., have to make movies they want to make, and not so much as feel as though like they should make them. So I'm obviously a director has a lot of responsibility and should make films they feel like they should make, but I don't know. I just feel like you have to really care about the movies that you're making, and hopefully there are some people that get on board with this franchise that care about like I don't know, making the leap, making it a little different. That's just my input though.
Yeah, I agree with what Lee said. I feel like directors kind of have to make they have to take like a leap, basically, even though they can't really pay attention to what the negative feedback that a certain group may react to, and they kind of just have to go with their gut and what they believe is right and what they believe is the best decision creatively, and whatever they whatever they feel is right, basically.
I think we need to just change. I don't think this is necessarily a movie issue or like these individuals as much as it is like a society issue and the societal lens that we're looking at the world through. So I would argue it's a bigger issue than just, James Bond.
Snapping for that.
Thanks, Lee.
Which brings us to our last topic. We'll be talking about the pop superstar Britney Spears and her ongoing conservatorship battle with her father, Jamie Spears. Recently, #FreeBritney has been trending on Twitter with the help of her fans who are trying to bring awareness and justice to her case. Britney has been under conservatorship since 2008, and her father has had complete control of her personal life as well as financial life. What do you guys think about this case?
I think Britney said it best herself. If she's able to perform, she should not be under conservatorship. Because I think if you're profiting off of someone that you have complete control over, that's no longer acceptable. There was recently a Hulu documentary released about the entire situation. I think we have the trailer for it, and then I can kind of talk a little bit more about it, but like just to give context.
First rule of the conservatorship was you don't talk about the conservatorship.
Not much was really known about what was going on behind the scenes.
Her manager said, don't get too close. People have a way of disappearing.
They were monitoring everything.
It has been hard to come forward. We signed those NDAs, but this is important.
So basically, in that documentary, they talked about, I guess, just some more things that have come to light. 3 of the most notable, I feel like, were that her iPhone was monitored. Vlasov, who was like a part of her security team, basically said that you'd be able to see all of her messages, FaceTime calls, notes, browser history, photographs, whatever she was searching, like, etc., which I think is a huge invasion of privacy, regardless of like who you are, no matter how old you are. Her personal assistant and one of her like longtime best friends wasn't allowed to see her. Her dad, Jamie, told her that specifically. And that if she were to see her best friend on tour, she wouldn't perform. But then when she saw Britney like ran up to her and was like, "Where have you been? Like, I missed you so much." So they essentially took away her support system, which I think is also really messed up. And 3, people were monitored during crowds. People who supported the Free Britney movement were like, I guess, scouted during concerts, and people would ask around like by security team members who were like in disguise, "Have you heard about this move?" I think that just feels really, really icky. So I think that in this documentary, it kind of like brings about how much like fear a little bit was instilled by this kind of conglomerate, it feels like, of, it's almost like a prison. It is toxic. #toxic, #Free Britney.
#stream toxic.
I just want to like touch base on the like unfair aspect too. Like Britney's the one that's going out there and performing at the time, back in the 2000s and 2010s, she was performing pretty much every other day, 4 hours a day, just working her butt off. And just for her to basically not get to reap the benefits of that and just have her father basically censor everything is just ridiculously unfair.
Yeah, to go off of what Matt said, she was making millions of dollars basically a week or a day in Las Vegas during her residency, and she was only getting an allowance of like $2,000 a week. So that basically shows you the manipulation that was at play there.
At that point, it feels here. Sorry, go ahead, Amelia.
No, go ahead, Lee, because mine's a little off. Nothing.
Nose goes. No, go ahead.
Okay.
You go.
I was just gonna say is that there's a movie called Love and Mercy, which is about the Beach Boys and Ryan Wilson, I believe. Oh gosh. Okay. Anyway, basically, it's a very similar story about how he was put on medication that he didn't need, so that he would become very confused and very like malleable to their career to do whatever they wanted, and then I don't know if it was officially a conservatorship or not. I think it was. But basically, they also took all his money and stuff. And, like, it's scary. And the fact that it's, like, it's not even like this is a new story. Is like, this is happening again to this poor woman. And I mean, the fact that it's her family is so sickening to me. I don't know how you do that to somebody you love. I don't know.
This case definitely like opened my eyes as to like conservatorships in general, and I think a lot of like maybe a lot of other conservatorships will be investigated because it's like crazy how much power they have over somebody. And it's like a pop superstar like Britney Spears didn't have any control over her financial like status. She had to ask for Skechers. I remember one point they like talked about in the film, which is just insane to me.
The question I like immediately thought of when I was reading everything and found out that it was her father that was doing it. If you're in Britney's shoes after this is over, do you still love your father? Do you still care for him?
I think for myself personally, I value like respect a lot. And I think that if like a father does this to like his own child, at a certain point he realizes it's not for her own good, and it's a little bit not even a little bit, it's like manipulative, and I guess you're kind of using your own daughter as like a money machine. I feel like you lose a lot of respect for your daughter because you don't view her as such anymore. And if you do, I feel like it's very commercialized in a sense. So I don't think I could respect my father after that, and I don't think I would love him anymore. I think I would just feel so used. And I hope that she is able to like regain her support system that he took away from her, because I think that's also another thing that's like really harmful. It's like the people that are supposed to be so close to you take away all of your friends, take away all of your connections to the outside world, and you're left with kind of like nothing.
Well, and one of the details that like made me crazy about this was, right, like they wouldn't let her go off her birth control even though she wanted to have another child. I was like, that's extremely invasive to force something like that on somebody, so, especially very timely issue. So I think, I don't know. I think poor, and I hope we stop. Like, you see a lot of celebrities that are reaching out and like talking about it and being like, "Oh, I'm right there for you," but like, are they helping her? Are they making strides, or like they just jumping on the movement because it's trending and they want to like stay up topic? Like, less words, more action.
To go off of that, Amelia, she's actually been vocal about this for since at least like 2014. So I mean, where was the support from these big celebrities back then? And you know, I mean, this whole situation's messed up from the beginning, and the support wasn't there from a lot of big names that it is now.
One of the things that I'm not too clear about this, but she has a boyfriend, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Was he aware of what was going on, and was he like trying to help her, or was he technically on the father's side?
They wouldn't let her see him sometimes, or like they had to be supervised dates, right? That was.
I just feel like she's being controlled so much. There's no way that he wouldn't know about it, and not to be like assuming or anything, but I think it does make you wonder, like, if he's not being vocally supportive, like, how supportive is he actually, or like, what are his intentions?
I think he's like spoken up in the court cases, though. I thought.
I'm not sure. That's why I said I didn't want to assume. I didn't know about him that much.
No, I was just trying to remember. Free Britney, guys.
I think something that I wonder, like, obviously none of us hopefully will be in this position, but based off of like what we've heard and learned about with like monitoring phones, taking away a support system, kind of like turning your life inside out a little bit, which part do you think would be like the most difficult for you to come to terms with? Because she's obviously having to do all of this at once, especially now that it's out in the media. I know for myself, like not having a support system, I think would be like the most difficult. So I feel like seeing so many people now, like even if they're just learning about it, like seeing Free Britney, I hope makes her feel like she has a little bit of support by like the everyday Joe, you know?
Her fans and the general public.
Yeah.
One thing I hope that comes out of this is that not necessarily her fans, but the people that did this to like her father will help her, or at least try to help her get back to a normal life. Because being in that conservatorship for that long I can't imagine, going back to mental awareness, I can't imagine what that it was going to do to her mental. So I would really hope that people will be helping her an extreme amount to get her back to a normal living life.
And I hope that her father is honestly like held accountable for all that he's done to her for all these years. Like he shouldn't just be able to just like, okay, I'm not her conservatorship anymore and not face any of the responsibility of isolating her and abusing her financially. So
I don't know if anybody knows this, but if she does get out of it, will she get the money that she made back that she made during this conservatorship?
She could probably win it in like a court case. Maybe she could sue them for the money that she was owed, but didn't get. I'm not really entirely sure how a conservatorship fully works, so I don't know if she could win it back in a sense. But I would hope so, for her sake.
I hope so.
me as well. So that wraps up our show for today. Thank you for joining us. And please come back next Tuesday when we're back here again at 20somethings TV. Have a good night.
Don't be toxic.